My name is Noira Ellis, and this is the story of the boy I loved who never knew because he never had to, because he was never mine. We met on the first Monday of September in the downtown art library of a city neither of us were born in. I was sketching people's shoes for an assignment. He was asleep on the floor between history and philosophy shelves. His name was Iran Vale. The librarian scolded him for snoring. I offered him a coffee as he woke up. He blinked twice, took it, and said, "Do you always rescue strangers with caffeine?" I said, "Only the ones who look like they haven't slept since birth." He laughed. That's how it began. We never dated. We never confessed. But every Tuesday afternoon, we met on the 4th floor of that library. No questions, no reasons. He read newspapers. I sketched in silence. Somewhere between his quiet presence and the way he always said goodbye with a nod, I fell. But he was never mine. Iran was studying architecture. He drew buildings the way poets describe heartbreak, structured but soft. He never bragged, but the campus knew him. I was the invisible one, the observer, the one whose notebooks filled up faster than her life. Every week, Iran would leave a folded origami on my table, a crane, a house, once a perfect paper piano. He never explained them. I never asked. In return, I'd leave color paper bookmarks, each with a sketch of something near him. His worn-out sneakers, his cup with a chipped rim, the way his hair curled near his temple. We never talked about love, but silence has a language of its own. I remember one evening when the lights flickered during a storm. He handed me a flashlight, then whispered. He always looked calm, even when the world. My reply stayed in my throat. If I said how I felt, would the magic disappear? Fall passed. Winter crept in. Aaron started talking about graduation, portfolios, job interviews in cities far away. I listened with a smile stitched from threadbare courage. In December, he gave me a sketchbook. Inside, he had pasted all my bookmarks, every single one. He said, "You noticed me in ways I didn't know I could be seen." I couldn't breathe. That night I drew him, not just his face. I drew his quiet, his small kindnesses, his unknowing impact. And then I closed the book and told myself, this is enough. The final Tuesday came too soon. We met at the usual spot. Snow framed the window like a painting. He had a travel bag beside him. "You're leaving?" I asked, even though I already knew. "Tomorrow," he said. We sat without speaking for a long time. Then he said, "Noira, you've been the softest part of this city for me." I wanted to say, "Then why aren't you staying?" But I nodded. Before he left, He pressed a tiny box into my hand. Inside was a folded paper sun. Orange, gold, quiet. For the light you always were. And he walked away. No promises. No confessions. No turning back. Because he was never mine. Months passed. I didn't cry. I didn't chase. I lived. I painted a wall in my room yellow. I started sketching strangers again. I kept his origami sun beside my desk, not because I missed him, but because it reminded me that silence could be beautiful too. Friends asked me why I never told him. I said, some people aren't meant to be ours. They're meant to remind us of ourselves. And honestly, that was enough. Somehow, one spring morning, I got a letter. No return address. Inside was a photograph. A bookstore in Italy. A small paper crane taped to the window. Below it, a note. Thought of you today. The bookstore owner loved your bookmark I left here. I didn't know what to feel. Joy? Closure? Maybe both? I smiled because even far away, he remembered the bookmarks. And somewhere in the world, someone was holding a piece of us without even knowing. I started writing again, not just poems, letters I'd never send, stories I'd never publish, about people like Aaron, about silences that mattered. I taught a class on visual storytelling at a community center. One student asked me, do all love stories end in being together? I said no. Some end in understanding, some in art, some don't end at all. They just change form. The student nodded, and I realized I was no longer waiting. I was remembering. With peace. Years later, in a city far from where we met, I passed a street artist folding paper cranes for children. I bought one. I asked if he knew who taught him. He smiled. An architect from Colorado said he learned it from a girl who used to draw bookmarks. My breath stopped. Aaron, he remembered. He passed it on. And somehow, our story continued in ways neither of us planned. Not in love letters, not in dates, but in paper. And in people. My name is Noira Ellis. I once loved a boy named Aaron Vale. We never kissed, never held hands, never promised forever. But every Tuesday, for 1 year, we shared something wordless and real. And that kind of love, it doesn't need a label. He was never mine. But maybe that's what made it beautiful.